gets back inside, tells her to call 911, but they realize that, as he's telling her to call 911, she's drenched in blood, and they realize that, oh wait, it's not her blood, it's in fact Art's blood. He got shot in the gut, and so he's hit, he's bleeding pretty good, and he, once he realizes he's been shot, he goes down pretty quick and kind of keels over. So so then we get Raylan picking up Art's wife to take her to the hospital. They have a conversation about him being an absentee father and how it relates to this situation. Again, it felt a little awkward and shoehorned. I don't know what you thought about this kind of conversation. She's like, why aren't you where you're supposed to be? And it seems to be like asking him the question about why wasn't he there for Art, but Art was taking care of this because Raylan wasn't supposed to be involved. So I don't know. It's weird.
Well, I think that you're giving them, the writers, at least for this episode, the benefit of the doubt. Maybe the director, as far as like, okay, like you had mentioned that the wink, wink, nod, nod thing about being heavy handed with Boyd.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the same thing with this. I think, in my opinion, I didn't say this earlier, but it's maybe because they were trying to, I don't know, maybe they couldn't finesse it better.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I don't know. I'm just thinking maybe that was just all they had to work with. And it wasn't really nod, nod, wink, wink. It was more like, okay, this is how we're going to do it.
This is how we're going to do it because we've got to get this information out there. Or we need to force this conversation where, Leslie Mullen, calls Raylan a bad father because he's also a bad marshal or whatever. Yeah. It's or vice versa, right? Or bad marshal because he's a bad father. I don't know.
Go ahead. No, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I struggle with that conversation in the car, and I have from the first time I watched it. I don't know.
Yeah, because it's like, she's like, oh, I'm not saying that, it's you, but yeah, I am. It's like,
yeah, you couldn't have done anything different to prevent this, but ultimately, I think it's still your fault. And she's not wrong about that. Also.
This is true. Yeah.
Like, his continued provocation of the crows is what leads to this situation. I think it's also fair to point out, by the way, that this is, in fact, the second time that someone has been shot while someone was trying to shoot Raylan, because it happened to Trooper Tom Bergen, too.
Yes, it's true. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
that's the Hurricane Raylan thing, like this shitstorm that he, I think it's a fair criticism because look what he's brought to the office, so.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Well, so she gets there. We find out Art's in extremely critical condition, which I don't think is a thing. It's like not an actual thing. He's like super ultra critical.
Yeah. It's funny because the note I had here was like Dr. Patel. Did you have any? Because like when I was a kid, Indian doctors were a pretty common thing in California. Indian being not Indian,
sure.
Not Indian as a Native American.
Sure, no, I know.
Indian,
not Dr. White Claw or whatever, right? I get it. I had Chinese doctors actually. Growing up. My pediatrician was Chinese. I believe he was Chinese, based on his name, but because I don't really remember. But we should also emphasize that I grew up poor. And medical care was not a high priority for my family. So I went to the doctor not very often. So if I needed medical treatment for something, I went to the doctor. That was about it.
Yeah.
So no checkups, nothing like that.
Well, I just thought it was funny because I actually had a doctor when I was growing up. His name was Dr. Patel, but he was like one of the many, like I said, Indian, from India. But the other thing I had a note here was like, I don't know, remember in Glengarry Glen Ross, the name Patel, they would just always bash.
Set out Patel.
Yeah.
But she just puts Chino delivering that line. It's so good. Glengarry Glen Ross.
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead.
One word line reads from Al Pacino. Patel.
Oh no, that was the wrong one. Sense of a woman or whatever it was.
I'm just getting warmed up.
But definitely, oh yeah, I was gonna say if you because it's such a 80s to 90s sales thing, like the whole like that sales room. It's, I don't even know what they do now.
I don't know.
But
You know what? I bet they still do it.
Maybe it is like in foreign, like the Nigerian scammers or like in foreign countries, like calling. And, okay,
always maybe. Be closing. I bet it is, man. I bet those boiler rooms are still everywhere. Yeah. So we find out that Art's extremely critical, which again, don't think it's a thing. I wanted to comment on this. The comment I wrote is that we didn't get much of the Doctor in this scene, but if it had been The Sopranos, we would have gotten more of the Doctor because The Sopranos love nothing more than to make fun of doctors. They loved making doctors look stupid on The Sopranos. That was one of their favorite kind of things. They'd go back to the well over and over again to make doctors look stupid. I loved that. That's true. That Dr. Kennedy, they made him into one of the biggest buffoons on the show.
Yeah, that's right. Wait, was he was the neighbor, right?
He was the cancer doctor, but Cusimano, also a doctor, and they called him Cus and all that.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. No, they have no respect. The gangsters have no respect for doctors, especially quacks. Especially black and brown doctors. They really when Chris was getting treated by the Indian physician who showed up again later too. I remember their reaction to that was not good. So,
and it does play perfect into like Tony going to see a therapist and everything else, because the guy's getting treated.
That's exactly right. It's played so perfectly, and it just made me miss this scene. Made me miss that because the Doctor should have said something stupid. That's although extremely critical could qualify, I suppose. But.
I know.
So we find out also that Ed from Detroit's coming in to run the office. So we know Ed because we saw him when Art went up to Detroit to interrogate Picker. We saw Ed there. And then Tim, he wants to go after Daryl and seems ready to kill him. So Ed's going to want to go after Theo. Raylan and to a lesser extent Tim think that the actual one to go after here is Daryl Crow Jr. And I have a little clip. They had a meeting. And I have a little clip of that.
It was Daryl Crow looking for payback. What's the alternative?
Art did shoot Theo Tonin not so long ago.
30 years after Drew Thompson did that, he was still mad enough to drop bodies about it.
Well, the good news is if we want to question Theo, he ain't hard to find. How about Daryl?
We're looking. KSP went by Audrey's. Place was shut down.
Well, there you go. Why's he run? He ain't the shooter.
I imagine where he's from, even suspected cop shooters don't tend to get arrested.
Yeah, but how does a man even know he's a suspect?
Well, it doesn't take a genius to know he'll be top of our list day after a marshal kills his brother. Somebody takes a shot of the chief. Art's face is all over the news.
You saying you think he ran even though it wasn't him that did it?
I'm saying we have to consider it.
All right, I've considered it.
Whatever it is, it's not your call to make. Ed Kirkland, Detroit chief, he's coming in to head up the investigation, run the office for the time being.
Makes sense. He and Art go back.
He also goes back with the Tonins, which means Theo will probably be his first instinct. So, we follow his lead.
Dr. Wallace to the OR. Dr. Wallace to the OR.
Kirkland's due within the hour. After that, our options shrink.
You talking about any particular option?
The one where we catch up with Daryl. Out in the wild world.
You be on board for that?
It's Art.
You think that's what he would want?
I think he'd do it for us.
I do respect him. I don't think you know Art as well as I do.
Who's right here? Do we think it's Raylan that's right, or do you think it's Tim that's right? You think Art goes after Daryl Crow Jr. in this instance if it's Tim or Raylan?
If it was Tim, probably. If it was Raylan.
At this point, if it's Raylan, probably not. Yeah, but if
he would go after him, I think. Actually, I think he would, but I think he has still some stuff to work through.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think the way Tim wants to go after him is, leave the star behind. And sort of go after him. And I don't see Art doing that. I don't think.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah.
But anyway, so that's the essence of it. Tim and Raylan are going to go to see what they can track down on Daryl Crow Jr. Rachel and Ed seem to think that it's that Theo Tonin is worth tracking down. Ultimately, Raylan goes back to the office, finds Ed in the office with Vasquez. Allison's asleep on Art's couch. He explains to her she's going to be under martial protection for a while until they find the shooter. And then he has a conversation with Ed about next steps. And Ed tells him what they expected to hear, which is he wants to go after Tonin. Vasquez goes off to have a conversation with Tonin's counsel and confesses. He confesses to ordering the hit on Art. He says it's Picker that did it, and so they want to bring Picker in for questioning. And Raylan thinks it's complete bullshit, but it is what it is. So that's the lead that they have so far, and they're going to go after that. Meanwhile, Boyd and Team Crowder, Jimmy and Carl, are meeting, and they're having a conversation about the dope and about Boyd's meeting with Wynn Duffy that's coming up. So I have a clip of that.
I got to go explain to Mr. Picker and Mr. Duffy how we come to lose half that shipment.
We didn't lose it.
Well, I'll make sure to tell them that. Now, while I'm gone, I want you to hide that dope.
Where?
I don't know. And I don't want to know. It's going to be my insurance.
Insurance for what?
For walking out of that hotel room.
Christ, Boyd, if you're that worried about walking out, why even walk in?
Because procrastination has never been a part of my nature.
Well, at least take us with you. Shit, Boyd, they want a war. We'll stack them up like cordwood.
Goddamn right. Son, after everything I've asked you to do, I appreciate the sentiment. But this one's on me. But I need you to promise me that if this don't go my way, that you will take care of Ava by giving that nurse everything she needs.
Of course, Boyd. But you ain't got to do this.
Just hide the dope. But when I say hide it, I want you to hide it so God can't even find it. Now get out of here. Go on.
So we see the essence of Boyd's plan here, right? He's going to go into a hostile situation. He wants to make sure that he's got at least a little bit of leverage to potentially get himself out of that hostile situation. And and he tells them to hide the dope so he can't find it. He won't know where it is, so that they can't torture or beat or, attempt to extract the information from him in any other way. It's a smart plan. What we also see, and we don't quite know what we're looking at this point in the episode, is Boyd with a pack of cigarettes, some tools, and a detonator in his hand. And we're left to make an inference that he's doing something with the pack of cigarettes, but it's not clear exactly what.
Yeah, you really have to pay attention because it does pay off later on, obviously. But yeah,
it definitely does. And I wish they had picked a lane with this. I really do wish they had picked a lane. Either make it subtle or make it in your face. They've got this sort of there's the subtle signs and then the in your face kind of elements. Yeah. Again, I think it's done in a winky style, but I think it's still kind of all right, it's a little much, guys. Let's, I can't imagine they felt good doing that scene on set with Boyd insisting on smoking a cigarette in that hotel suite. It felt so awkward on the screen. It felt so forced, and all the characters are looking at each other what the hell is going on here? And you kind of almost feel like that's what the actors are doing in the moment. Are we really doing this? Is this really what we're doing right now? Okay, well, all right, whatever. So anyway, yeah, so that's what happens, right? Boyd's meeting with Wynn, Picker, and Catherine Hale in Wynn's suite. And we met Catherine Hale last time. She is there to evaluate whether or not Boyd should be allowed to live, essentially. Is Boyd going to be a partner for the long term for Wynn Duffy, or should Wynn just, cut his losses? And they have a little bit of a conversation of the heroin